Hey there. Welcome to the More Miles podcast. I'm Lauren,
I'm Scott.
Hi, Michelle.
and we are the More Miles Run Coaching team. Okay, we are here in episode 13. We are coming up on the holiday season, and we wanted to do an episode, just the three of us here today, talking about tech to elevate your training. So, tools, gadgets, resources that you can use to take your training to the next level in the upcoming new year. So, we have a broad category of things that we're going to cover. I want to make sure to say up front, we are not recommending that you invest in all of these things. We are just covering a lot of categories here and hoping to give you some insight on tools that can be really helpful for you in your training, the pros and cons of each, and a couple brand recommendations in there as well. So we're really going to cover a lot in this episode, I think. And then we will come back at the end with a little bit of nuanced discussion about what things maybe carry the most benefit if you are weighing out what you want to invest in, what you want to spend on. Okay, so let's just roll right into it. Michelle, I am going to throw it to you for our first category. I think we'll all kind of chip in on all of these. But okay, Michelle, you go ahead and take it away. What are you starting with?
So our first thing to talk about is GPS running watch. So a lot of athletes, especially when you're starting, will begin tracking runs or walks or anything on their phone, which is great because you can see your path, your distance, and your pace. But there's a lot of benefits to investing in a GPS watch. And when I say GPS watch, there are Fitbits, there's Apple Watches, there's different variants of that. And those are great as a general fitness tool, but they're not dialed in towards running or endurance sports specifically. So while they can track your steps, maybe your general calorie burn, they're not going to give you the statistics from your runs that like a Garmin or a Coros or something like that will. And the things I'm talking about is, your ongoing pace. These watches, you can look down and see your exact pace at any moment. A lot of times you can see your heart rate depending how you have your screen set up. And then they can give you other metrics, your elevation gain, and then they can give you your lap pace, your heart rate zones. So they really get a lot of granular data that whether you personally use it or not, great, but your coaches will love it because we can really tailor your training plans the more we see data from your runs, including your cadence, your heart rate, elevation, temperature, all the things it records. Give us a full blown picture of your run, what you did, your effort levels, and that helps us dial in your training. So they're also great because like your phone, a lot of times you're not holding it. You're going to hold it in your hand or you're going to have it held back. You don't want to hold a phone in your hand the longer your runs get. It's going to actually change your running form by holding it, which you may not think it does, but it does. Or if you have it put away, you're not going to be able to see your ongoing pace, your distance, or anything. And phones rely on your cellular data too. So if you're a trail runner especially, or you live in a remote area, the data may be completely inaccurate because it's not pinging GPS satellites like a watch does. So your watches aren't tied to cellular data like a phone is. They're using a special GPS satellite system that's pretty much on in the most remote areas. These elite runners are running in the desert and they're able to get their GPS super accurately. So they're very accurate. And you don't have to worry about using phone data or, if you're on a limited plan, you're not using up that stuff. And they're just great because you can, during your run, constantly glance at it, see what you're doing, make sure you're in check within a certain pace range if that's prescribed, make sure your heart rate's in the right zone. And then there's, other features that go with it, like a Garmin or a Coros. So you can program the workouts your coaches give you into your watch, which is really, really awesome. So instead of watching your distance and saying, oh my gosh, okay, was it a quarter-mile interval? Was it a half-mile interval? How long was my rest period? You can program that into your watch to take the thought process out of it, and it will just ping you when it's time to run fast, ping you when it's time to run slow, give you alerts a lot of times, even if you're in or out of a pace range. You can set up alerts for heart rate. You can set alerts for cadence to remind yourself to fuel, to drink. Like there's a million different ways you can alert yourself on the run to do whatever it is you need to do during that run, to the point where it might be overload a little bit, but yeah.
So that's an interesting, I was going to ask that question because So when we're talking about a GPS watch, we are specifically looking at one that's designed for running an endurance sport. And that is the difference between a wearable fitness tracker and one that's designed for endurance sport is all of these features that you're mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are shopping for a watch, what kind of features what's the minimum that we should be looking for in if you're going to invest in a watch, what do you want to get on that watch as a minimum?
Yes, there's a few things. First of all, I want to say battery life is a big one. Like Apple Watches and Fitbits, they're not designed for endurance. And I'm just going to say that out as somebody who's used them both and have had long runs where they've died. It's super frustrating. So
This
you
is
want to
also
make
different from your phone. Your phone
right.
battery is not going to last as long as a wearable watch.
Right. So look for that. So if you're training for a marathon and you know your long runs need to be 4 to 5 hours long, whatever your marathon goal pace, maybe 6 hours long, you need to make sure that whatever watch you pick can survive that time plus some because you're going to have it on before your race. You're going to be wearing it like maybe the night before. So make sure you have that. And a lot of these Garmin's and Coros watches, whether you're getting the base model or the top of the line, most of them have several days of battery life or at least 24 hours of battery life in workout mode. So that's why they're great. You could even get like the $100 Garmin that will last you through a marathon training, no problem. But the key things you want to look for that it will track, you want to make sure the GPS is accurate. GPS is a big one because we're all going by distance. Your pace, if it can connect to a heart rate monitor, which we'll get to later, or it will show your wrist-based heart rate. Those are the big ones. Like that's really the basic things that you need is just those three things. The rest of it's icing on the cake. If you're a trail runner, you probably want something that shows elevation. Road runners may not need that quite as much because we're not like junkies with that like everyone else is. But if you're going to be like you're going in for like ultra running and you are going to be out for 24 hours or more, getting the solar powered option might be a great thing for you. But for someone running 10Ks or half marathons or marathons, it's not necessary. So a lot of these watches, when you go on the website, they will overload you with a million different metrics you can track. And some are nice to have, but I would say the mileage, pace, heart rate, those are the three that you really just need to have. Everything else is just something that might be useful to you one day. VO2 max a lot is on here, which, this is another conversation, but VO2 max on these watches is not accurate. It means nothing. It's kind of on there as a general thing. That's something you don't need. Some of them have sleep tracking, which we'll get into in a minute or so, but those three are the main training items I would say you need.
Well, so that's one of the key things to explore too when you're looking at a running specific watch, Garmin and Coros are the two big brands in running specifically. There are a lot of GPS watches out there that are specific for other sports or are best used for other sports. I won't even say specific. You could use it for running, but the features and the analytics are specific to other sports. What you're getting with both Garmin and Coros is endurance sport analytics. So it's not just the watch itself and the data that it collects, but the app that comes with the watch where you download all or upload all of your data to. They also come with analytics. So, you go out for a workout and it will tell you now, all of this, we should preface by saying it's an algorithm. Your app doesn't understand abstract training concepts. And so that's where it's really important to not trust these analytics blindly as your guide for all of your decision making. But they are interesting metrics to look at. So they will analyze your workout after you've done a workout. They will analyze your sleep if you're wearing it 24 hours a day. The apps will track your cycle if that's something that you choose to do. I'm trying to think what else. Your resting heart rate. There's so much data that they are collecting and then also analyzing for you. And that's a lot different than something you're getting from just a run tracker on your phone or just an activity tracker that's not designed for endurance sports specifically. How about let's maybe for each of you, if you could, so the basic things we want to be looking for are wrist-based heart rate, which is pretty standard in 2023, your basic models all have a wrist-based heart rate. GPS, so you can see your pace, your distance, your cadence, your elevation. Those are all pretty standard features. If you guys could pick and choose from fancy features that if you were going to spring for something that has something fancy on it, What would you pick, or would you not? Do you think that that stuff doesn't matter? Michelle, I'll ask you first since this was your topic.
This is tough because I use a separate tracker for my recovery. Garmin has it too, and sometimes, like right now, I will wear them together to see like how they battle it out because it's just interesting as a data nerd to see which one says what. Um, but I would say the sleep tracking is nice. If you don't have a separate sleep tracker, I do love that. And Garmin has body battery, which is kind of cool. It shows you over the course of a day, like how charged out of 0 to 100 you are. So I think that's interesting because you can see how certain things during the day might boost your recovery, and other things that are non-running related would deplete it, like stressful work day or running around with your kids. So that's kind of an interesting feature. Um, there's not, Garmin's new. It's kind of related. Garmin just released a nap feature, which I like because it recommends, like you should take a nap, but keep it to 30 minutes
Oh,
maybe. And it's super judgmental. Let me just tell you, because I don't know, like it's very, Garmin gives a lot of feedback in like paragraph format, like, you wake up and it's like good night's sleep, but you didn't get enough deep sleep. The nap thing will say, like, I took one nap and the first nap I took, it told me it was too long. So tomorrow take it shorter. So the next one I took a 30-minute nap and it told me it was too late in the day. So I haven't gotten the nap timing right according to Garmin, although my sleep was not affected either time, like it said. So again, it's an algorithm and I slept just fine that night.
right.
But
Right.
it's interesting. So those are my ones. The recovery, sleep tracking, I would say are pretty cool.
I like that. I haven't seen that yet, but I like the okay, family. My watch says I have to take a nap.
It doesn't give you a
Yeah.
time. It just says, it's recommended. It boosted your recovery by like 20 points,
Oh,
which is
okay.
awesome. I'm like, sweet. So like I started napping. But
Nice.
it doesn't like my naps. So I don't know.
All right, Scott, how about you? What features are most important to you?
I'll start by saying I've had literally every brand of watch imaginable. But I would say, and this may be a boring answer, but I would say battery life in tandem with how accurate the GPS is. So, again, I've gone back and forth with watches based on the data, the analytics, how good their app is, et cetera, et cetera. But for me and what I'm doing, right, what's important to me is I need something that's going to last a very long time. Not even just on the actual run itself. I'm just really bad at remembering to charge things. like my cell phone will literally be on 2% at the worst time known to man. The one thing that I really like about the watch that I currently have right now is that it pings when I get below 10% battery life on said watch. It'll give me this bing bing, and I know okay, it's time to charge it up. But that watch will last me literally 24 hours on less than 10%, even if I'm running. So for me, that's fantastic because again, as somebody that will probably forget when I get back from my run to charge it because I'm just not going to do it. Battery life more than anything is what I need. The GPS accuracy too. I really like tracking my elevation. I really enjoy some trail runs, even though I don't get out there as much as I would like. I really like something that's accurate that shows me not only just how much elevation I've done, but kind of like the topography, right? Like, okay, you can see when you're done, wow, I climbed a lot in the first quarter of my run, and then it was downhill a lot after that. And even though you can kind of get that based on feel when you're running, it's really cool for me, I think, just to look at it at the end and say, okay, the next time I go do that route, I'll know what I'm up against from an elevation standpoint and kind of what to expect. So that would be my two.
So, what watch do you have? We can talk brands.
Yep, I've got the Koros. I've got Koros. I don't have the top of the line Koros. I've got the Apex. It's probably one of, if not their cheapest model that they make. But again, for me, it's battery life, and it does fine for me. I don't need as much in terms of the data. The one thing that, and I think any watch is like this, is based on the type of run that I'm doing. So if I'm doing a heart rate run, I'll set the watch face so that front and center is my heart rate. If I'm
Mhm.
going on a speed session, I'll set the watch face so that it's more going off of pace and actual precise distance. So that's another feature. I think, again, I think every watch does that, but you're not going to get that on your phone, right? If you pull out your phone, you're
Right.
not going to be able to toggle back and forth. So to me, I think that's another good feature on any type of watch is just based on what type of activity you're doing that day, you can tailor the watch face so you can look down and that's what you're focused on that particular day.
Yeah, Garmin does that too. And I know for my easy runs, I will only see heart rate. That's all I see is a heart rate zone. And in Garmin, you can give it a zone. So like I want to be between here and here. And it keeps you in check. It's amazing. So you don't go too hard. And then speed work, I don't see my heart rate. Like it's great because you can customize it for your workout. So you're focusing what you need to focus on and getting all that other data out of the way because it doesn't matter. Yeah.
I think that's important. That's something we're going to talk about too, is that at some point there is too much data that you can't use all of this. It's not all practical. Okay, so I would agree with everything you guys said. Battery life is probably key for me also. And I have a watch that has the solar, and I will say, in my opinion, it's completely worthless and not worth the money at all. The little teeny tiny solar strip that it has, and I spend a lot of time outside. I mean, any given day, I spend multiple hours outside in the winter. In the summer, it's like a lot. So I should get good solar charging, I think, and I don't get any. I have not seen any difference at all with the solar model. So I'll just throw that out there. It does cost extra to get that solar benefit, and I have not seen the value in that.
I would say that too. Yeah,
Um,
I got the Garmin Solar, the last watch I had, and I paid the extra for it. And I remember I had it for like 6 months before trading it. I couldn't figure out, is this doing anything? And so yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it really didn't do anything for
Man.
me. Yeah.
It'll show you when it's absorbing solar intensity. So, like, you can see that it knows it's outside, it knows it's receiving something. It's just not on a teeny tiny device. And the main part of the device is the screen. So the solar strip is so tiny that I think it just can't really absorb enough sunlight to make a difference to actually charge this battery. But so the extended battery life is great. I also really, really like two key features. I am also someone who goes out for really long, maybe sometimes backwoods adventures. One is downloadable maps. So I can actually download the map for the area I'm in on my watch. So if I don't have cell phone service and I get lost, I have a map that's on my wrist to help me figure out where to go. And the other one that pairs with that is fall detection.
Oh, that's a
So
good one.
it's a great one. So you pre-program in 2, 3 emergency contacts, and then 911 is a preset emergency contact. So if it detects a hard impact, like if you're trail running and you fall, it will actually go through the process of calling your contacts. So it'll alert your contacts that you put in there first, and if it can't get a response from either of those, then it will call 911 as a last resort. And then it will also ping and shoot your location at the time that it detected the fall. So, like, if you lose service or you don't have signal, it has your last known location pinged in this one spot. So I think that's really cool as someone who trail runs alone, and my husband doesn't like that I trail run alone. My mom probably doesn't like it either. But I have this safety feature built in that is like a worst case, your worst nightmare is tripping and falling and hitting your head or something like that, and you're unconscious, or you get into a dangerous situation. So I think that's a really neat feature. It is an extra, but it's very cool. I like it. Um, okay, we spent a long time talking about our first topic. So here we go. Topic number 2. Let's move on. I might not ask that question for every item. Okay, Scott, this one's throwing to you. You have been very interested in sleep recently. So top of the list for you was sleep tracking as wearable tech. Let's talk a little bit about that. What do you mean when you're talking about wearable sleep tracking?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying I am just a humongous advocate for sleep as the primary recovery tool in and of itself, right? I mean, I've heard some people say like the best performance enhancing drug is sleep. You just can't beat it. I mean, and it's so important. So when we talk about wearable sleep devices, yes, many watches have, if not most all of them, what we just talked about, have sleep tracking, but there's also other specific devices. So there's rings that you can wear, specifically Aura Ring is probably the most popular. Whoop is another one. It's a band that you can wear that tracks your sleep. What I would say probably the difference between the watch and what these devices do is just in terms of the accuracy in terms of which it tracks it. So, for example, the Aura Ring is on your ring. And so, I'm not a doctor and I'm not going to claim that to really quote this exactly, but your finger, from what I've heard, has the most sensitive in terms of, the sensor on the ring, right? Like if you ever go to the doctor, I don't even know what they're called, where they put the little oxygen thing on your finger, right?
Oximeters, yeah.
Exactly. It's the most
Mm-hmm.
accurate tracking, right? So it's supposed to be more accurate. But anyway, so yeah, so it's going to track sleep data, right? So it's going to track not only the time that you slept, it's going to track, the sleep cycles, regular sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. It's going to track heart rate, but also heart rate variability, which is pretty popular right now. It's going to track when you woke up in the middle of the night, kind of any movement that you had. And again, really the benefit of a sleep tracking device versus using your watch as the means is just the accuracy, right? And some of the details. So I've had an Aura Ring for many, many years, and I will say that it kind of got a little bit addicting after a while of waking up every morning. And there's an app for that too, right? Like the Aura Ring, you go open up the app and it shows you all of the metrics, literally to the point of, let's say you go out the night before and have a heavy dinner or some drinks the night before, the next day, that sleep data looks like garbage, right? And I would wake up thinking, oh, I had a good night's sleep. But I look at it, it's like, no, you did not, right? So I may have slept for 8 hours, but I had almost zero deep sleep. My REM sleep was garbage, right? So for me, I think the benefit, not only just in the data part of it and just having the accuracy of the data, is you can really look at it, whether it's the next morning or week over week or month over month, and really see kind of, are you getting the right type of sleep, the good type of sleep, and then what kind of life behaviors are happening that may impact that, right? And some of them, maybe are controllable and some of them are not, right? If, you're going to eat a big meal right before bed, that might impact your sleep a little bit, right? Some work and life stressors, you may not be able to, change some of that. But again, I think it's just really one of those things that you're able to look at and say, how do I make the most of my sleep? And that's a good option, a sleep wearable device. Will your watch do it? Yes, but not to the degree and the, I guess, detail or extent that a wearable sleep tracker will do.
Yeah, it's nice the sleep trackers have I know Aura. I don't have Aura like you do. I have Whoop, which is different but similar. But you can track your behaviors in like journals, right? With Aura, like Whoop does, where like the next day you say what happened and like what time your last meal was, and they give
Yep.
you weekly or monthly reports of like what impacted your recovery. And I guess this Aura probably does the same exact thing,
Yep.
but it's
Yep.
cool because you really get your own personal
Yeah.
insight to what really screws up your sleep and what doesn't.
Yeah, I would say probably the I'm really not big on heart rate variability. I mean, I just really don't quite get it to that degree. But I will say this: is I took a week trip to Colorado last year, and I did nothing different other than just where I was sleeping, the elevation. And I went out there, and I would wake up every morning in Colorado, and my heart rate variability was terrible. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm chalking it up to the altitude, right? I'm just sleeping in obviously 7,000 feet versus sea level. I come back from that trip, the whole next week, my heart rate variability was through the roof, and I looked at it and says, whoa, like, did I get some sort of huge kind of gain and benefit from sleeping out in altitude for a week? And the answer was yes, right? I felt no different. I didn't wake up coming back from Colorado being like, wow, I feel great. I'm energized and everything's great. But the data told me that something was different. Something was, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, I was able to point to it and say, wow, being at elevation for a week, now I can see, you know, what happened there. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it's just one of those things that I wouldn't have been able to see any way other than having that wearable.
So I think that highlights a good point. As we're talking about in GPS watch that is specific to endurance sport being a step and above, like a regular activity tracker that you might wear. It sounds like what you guys are saying is that a sleep tracking product like an Aura, like a Whoop, is really more so in the analytics than in the data it's collecting. Your watch can collect all of the same data. You're getting maybe the next level of analytics that go with a sleep specific wearable. Is that fair?
Very fair. And I would also say just one last thing about the accuracy of it. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, like last night, for example, I was not wearing an Aura ring. I had my watch on, and I was watching a movie with the kids. Right before bed, I get into bed. I wake up this morning. I was like, wait, I didn't sleep for 12 hours because I was stationary on the couch watching a movie. It's my watch thought at this time we're asleep now, right? And I'm like, I wasn't asleep, I was wide awake. So I knew that it, there wasn't the
Yeah.
accuracy there, but that's just another thing. I mean, the watch, the second, from what I've seen, is the second you become stationary that late, your watch is going to think you're possibly asleep. And the reason for that, I think, is because on the watch, I actually have it programmed for what time that I typically want to go to sleep every night. On the weekends, I'm up a little bit later. My watch said, "Oh, Scott's stationary." It told me that it's sleep time. He's asleep, even though I was wide awake. I was just sitting still. So
Yeah, and Garmin itself, I mean, Garmin's sleep accuracy, I didn't find it accurate at all. Like as far as the sleep stages, like I would knowingly have a very restless night of sleep and be like up twice or three times during the night where I know like I was awake these three times, and Garmin's like deep sleep for 2 hours. I'm like, there was no deep sleep. There was no deep sleep at all. I was actually awake. So I've kind of had the opposite where it's like, you had a fantastic night of sleep. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I had a terrible night's sleep. But like Whoop picked it up. Whoop has picked up almost everything. I think it's malfunctioned a couple times, but not like Garmin did.
Yeah, I mean, the deep and the REM sleep, I like really looking at that data because to me, that indicates recovery. If I'm getting really good deep sleep and really good REM sleep, my body, my muscles, my mind, I'm as confident as I can be as I'm getting as good, really good rest, right, for both my mind and my body, than if I wasn't able to see that. Just a preference.
So
Yeah.
can I ask, and maybe you don't know, I certainly don't know. How does it know the difference? I wonder this all the time, regardless of the device that you're using. How does it know if you're in deep sleep or REM sleep, or
I
do we really do we know?
I don't think that
I don't
100
know.
with 100% accuracy. My interpretation of it is its body movement, right, as well as heart rate. So I've read somewhere, like for the Oura Ring, for example, really it tracks deep sleep when your heart rate and your heart rate variability is stable at a point, and your body movement is really non-existent. So it tracks
Hmm.
kind of your movement. So even if, and I'm not talking movement necessarily about your legs flailing around, but if it's on your ring, and some people can't see if they're not watching it, but if it's on your finger and your fingers are moving a little bit throughout the night, it's going to detect that. So kind of the heart rate stability getting low, and then also less movement in your body is what I interpret as through the literature that I've read. But I don't think it can be as that accurate. I mean, it's probably not as accurate if you go to like a sleep study in a hospital and you have electrodes plugged into your
Yeah.
Well,
head.
yeah.
Not like that.
They have
Right.
so they have one now. When I was looking at the Whoop, they have one where you can stick the electrodes on your head at night. I was like, who is going to sleep well with this thing on their head? But they have it. It's probably super accurate. But just
Data overload.
in case you do want to sleep with a bunch of electrodes pasted to your body, you can. But
Yikes.
I don't know. I just thought that was interesting when I saw that. Like, man, who's sleeping with this guy on their head every night?
Yikes. Okay, so I'm going to add in a piece of tech here on our conversation to kind of expand upon the two things that we already talked about. My probably number one piece of recommended technology is a heart rate strap, a chest strap, or an armband. They make both. It can either go on your chest or your arm. The difference in what you're looking for is that a wearable strap is electrodes that are actually making skin to skin, not skin to skin, electrode to skin contact. Which is different than what your watch is doing with an optical sensor. And that's actually different than what, like the Oura Ring is also an optical sensor, even though it's in a more sensitive area. Something that has an electrode is your most accurate reading on your heart rate. Why this matters. So specifically, most people don't wear a heart rate strap all day. We're talking about just wearing it for your workouts. So your heart rate is going to be a more accurate reading. The optical sensors are reasonably accurate as well, except in some scenarios. So right now we're in the winter. The winter is a time that your optical sensor becomes less reliable for almost everybody. The fit on your wrist changes in the cold weather. So it's not going to fit quite as snugly as it should, and it's not going to give you an accurate reading. You tend to get a lot of cadence interference in the wintertime. So, you see your heart rate go up to 180, even though you're like barely breathing, because it's picking up on your cadence rather than on your actual heart rate. The way that you wear it, if you don't wear it in the right spot, if you don't wear it with the right fit, it's going to be decreased accuracy. Whereas the electrodes that are actually on your skin are the most accurate measurement that we can get. That's what they're using in a lab when they're measuring your heart rate. So when we're looking at metrics, obviously on your run, you are going to get better heart rate readings, but there is also a lot of other metrics that come with a heart rate strap. You're not just getting heart rate readings. You are also getting your left right foot differential because it's strapped to your chest. It can tell you which side you're favoring. You're getting your vertical oscillation. You are getting your stride length. Like you're getting probably 10 extra data points that you're not getting from your watch alone. Most of those, I'm going to say, are not practical data points that you need to be looking at every single day or that your coach needs to be looking at every single day. However, if there's a problem, those data points are really, really valuable. So, a lot of ways, like if someone is working through an injury, having that chest strap where we can see their left right differential, and I can tell, even though I'm never running with this person, I'm not even watching them run, but I can tell that they're limping because of that left right differential. And it might even be so slight that they're not noticing it on their run, but we can pick out that something, there's an imbalance here, something is not quite right. So those data points are really neat. And then we were talking about HRV on the last topic. Wearable electrode device is going to give you your most accurate HRV reading, as opposed to the optical sensor, again, because that on the skin contact. So heart rate strap is inexpensive. It gives you a lot of extra data, specifically in your workout. Again, we're not looking to wear these as an all-day device. So sort of like maybe we'll call it like the Whoop for inactivity, whereas the Whoop is for when you're not, well, not necessarily, but for inactive time. The heart rate strap is your wearable for when you're in an activity and you want to get those extra data points and extra measurements.
I have a question about heart rate
Mm-hmm.
strap. So if I want to get a heart rate strap, right, to for the accuracy of the heart rate, if I'm downloading that heart rate data into an app like Final Surge, right, but as well as my watch is downloading other data like pace and time and distance, how does it know, right? Like I've got two devices trying to go into one.
So it syncs directly with your watch. It does not sync. It's not its own device that syncs with Final Surge. It's Bluetooth connected to your watch, whether you're using an armband or a chest strap. So when you complete a workout, all of that data comes together into one workout on your Garmin app or your Coros app or wherever you have it. So when you actually open your workout and you open the stats tab of your workout, you're just going to see 10 or 11 more data points than you've had before. So it all syncs together. And something about the question that you asked reminded me of something, and it's gone. I lost it.
That's actually incredible to know. I didn't realize that because I'm looking to get a heart rate strap, and I kept thinking to myself, well, how does it know? Like, how does Final Surge know which the strap or the watch to pull the heart rate number from? So.
Yeah, straight to your watch. The thing I remembered is, so if you are doing like water sports, or even cycling, I will say, but your heart rate strap is going to take your accurate heart rate measures in the pool, which you can't get with an optical sensor. It can try, but it's not going to be good. It's got to be on your skin if you are swimming, or surfing or any of those kind of sports. And even on the bike, because of the wrist position, sometimes you can get a funky reading there too. So again, just better accuracy across the board. And they're comfortable, they're lightweight. I will tell you the batteries don't last that long, only because it's a very lightweight device. You sweat on it probably more than anything else that you wear. So most of these are going to fall somewhere in the $80 to $100 range. It's probably going to last you 2.5 years, because it does get so much sweat, so much salt, so much wear. So know that as well. It's not going to last you as long as maybe like the investment in your GPS watch, for example. but you're looking at probably $80 to $100. It does not have to be the same brand as your watch, as long as it has a Bluetooth antenna ANT connection. It can sync with your Garmin, with your Coros. So it does not need to be the same brand to match up if you find a good deal. The one that I use is the Garmin HRM Pro Plus, I believe. It's designed to be a little bit more water resistant, a little more sweat resistant. Still probably 2.5 year lifespan on it. And it's $90, I believe. So yeah. Okay, moving right along. Scott, we're throwing to you next. We are talking about technology, and we're going to specifically gear that now toward nutrition. So we're talking about hydrogels and changing technology in sports nutrition. So tell us a little bit about hydrogels and why those might be a worthy investment.
Yeah. So I love hydrogels, specifically one brand, but I love them. I think probably to start off with, the main difference or the difference between a regular gel and a hydrogel is a regular gel is a concentrate. So it's just going to be, what's in there, right? And so you typically, and actually you do, not typically, you have to take it with water, right, for it to digest so that it doesn't give you GI and stomach issues, right? So if you just take a goo, right, I'll just use that out, right? And you take it and no water, right? That's just going to sit, and it might give you some upset stomachs and some GI issue. Um, Hydrogel, right? You don't have to take the water with it. It's got water in the packet, right? So the theory is that you can ingest it with less water. It doesn't have as many ingredients, right? So I'll use, for example, like a Spring Energy gel, for example. That's got a whole lot of real food in it, right? Fruits and food in it, right? That's going to, when you ingest it, that's different than a hydrogel, which is just literally, the sugar and the water, boom, right in. So at a high level, I would say that's what the difference is. Um, if you guys want to add anything to that, I think that I love them just because for me, I've tried so many different gels. They sit better for me. I have had over the years a lot of stomach issues with nutrition, gels specifically. And there's other reasons for that. But I think once I started using hydrogels, it really helped. I don't have any GI issues when I take them. There could be other reasons for that, but I think it's really that I pinpointed that that's my go-to. Do I use them every single run? No. Do I use them every single long run? No. But when it's key and I really need a good gel, I'm opting for the hydrogel, for that reason.
So, Michelle, do you maybe want to elaborate a little bit on what specifically most of these hydrogels have multiple types of sugar? Like what else makes them different than maybe your standard concentrated gel?
I mean, one key difference is for most brands, they don't have any electrolytes in them. So it's just pure sugar encapsulated with water. They have multiple types of carbohydrates in them, which some other gels do. It depends on the gel. Like every brand has a different combination of different sugars and carbohydrates and different ratios of them. But it's nice because we've talked about this in other episodes. I personally like to keep my hydration separate from my carbohydrates. Like I'm very much in the camp of I want my electrolytes here and my carbohydrates here. And that allows me to take them separately because there's no electrolytes. It's just sugar. I don't need water. I don't need anything with it. If you're not near an aid station and you're out of water, you can grab it to go. You don't have to get it down with the water. Like concentrated gels require fluid to be digested properly. These don't, which is really a great feature when you're on longer races and you may not have access to water for a few miles and you're starting to bonk and you need something or you're preventing it. So that's my biggest takeaway with them.
So I think we've highlighted it before, but I'm going to highlight it again just so people know. A traditional gel, most people might not realize, is a concentrate. A hydrogel is absorbable, digestible by itself. A traditional gel as a concentrate, just like any other concentrated thing that you would make in your kitchen, has to have water to be correct. So hydrogels you can take by themselves. A lot of them, as Michelle mentioned, do have multiple types of sugars. I think we see that pretty commonplace across the board in a hydrogel, whereas in a traditional gel, you may or you may not have multiple different types. That's important for absorption. So both the balance of water to sugars, but also having multiple types of sugars, it all is going to absorb faster into your bloodstream to get to your hardworking muscles quicker. I think, do you guys want to go through maybe what your favorite is? Because we're talking about hydrogel. I should point out, especially for our athletes, we are partnered with thefeed.com. All of our athletes have a sponsorship. And if you're not, you should go to their site anyway, because it's pretty fantastic. If you go to thefeed.com and you are looking for gels, hydrogel has their own category. So you can see all of the brands that are there. Again, these are just quicker, faster, kind of more dialed nutrition for when you're putting out hard efforts. So, Scott, you mentioned that you have a favorite. What is your favorite?
Morton. For those who are watching it, yeah, I've got tons of Morton. I love Morton. It's flavorless. Maybe that's why I enjoy it. I don't know. I've said this a million times before, but if you put it in your pocket on the long run and let it warm up, it tastes like toasted marshmallow when you eat it. So I think it's got some flavor. That's my favorite. I've tried a couple other brands, but just to me, and it just could just be the taste buds, but I think the flavor of some of them are just so overpowering. Um, Morton for me is my go-to, and quite honestly, it's really the only one that I would say that I really like. I mean, I know there's others out there. I may try some, but for me, Morton.
How about you, Michelle?
So I've been Team Morton for the last year, but I tried, we were just talking about this, Precision Nutrition, just to try to save a few bucks because it's slightly cheaper and almost identical in consistency to Morton. And I tried that for the first time on my long run yesterday. And the gel is fantastic. The packaging is going to take some practice. I had to stop and walk, and I still couldn't bite the thing open and had like plastic in my mouth from the inside, but the gel was great. So they're both great. I think they're both equal as far as the actual gel. Maybe that's something I'd take beforehand and put into a little gel bottle if I, can carry with me. But they're both
And it's
great.
also flavorless, like
Yes,
Morton. It's flavorless.
I think they're almost identical. Like really, the taste is very similar and the consistency. So I think either one. I just need to practice opening the other one.
Well, there's a little bit more. Precision has it has a couple more calories. It has so a Morton is 25 grams of carbs. A Precision is 30 grams of carbs. So I mean, it's a small difference, but it's a little bit cheaper for a little bit more carb.
Yeah.
Okay.
It tasted fine. What are you using?
I think my favorite is Never Second. Never Second is almost fluid. So unlike a Morton that has, it's not quite Jello. It has a consistency to it. You could swallow it or you could chew it. You don't have to chew it, but you could. A Never Second is almost liquid. So I really like that. And it does have electrolytes in it, which I also really like. Again, I don't like the packaging, sort of like Precision. It's a little difficult to open on the fly. Sis, I think, would be my next second. And it's very similar, also very fluid. And the packaging is a lot easier to open, a lot easier to get to. So Science and Sport is that one, would be my top two favorites. And there's always, because this is such a hot market right now, like we're really seeing the benefits of hydrogels on performance and on being able to really get as much glucose into your system as possible. This is really a hot market right now, and there's a lot of new products coming out and new ways to get that into your digestive system on the run. So a couple of our favorites, but there's always more coming out. Okay. So my next topic, as we're starting from nutrition and we sort of touched on electrolytes there, this is something I have been recommending to my athletes really frequently lately. And I think I would really promote it as a great investment leading into your next training block. I'm going to talk about wearable sweat tests. And specifically, the brand that I love the most is the Nix Biosensor, Nix Biosensor. This is a wearable patch. You just stick it onto your arm. There's a little pod that attaches to the sticker, and you go out for your run. Now, it's a wearable sweat test. So while you are running, it's taking that patch of skin that it's sitting on, and it is collecting your sweat data as you run. So that's both your sweat rate and your sweat concentration. both of those are important, but I think what we are most interested in is your sweat concentration. A lot of people struggle to know, am I a salty sweater? Am I an average sweater? How much electrolyte do I need to be taking into my system when I go out for a run? And your coach can't tell you that. Like, we don't know what kind of a sweater you are in terms of your concentration and in terms of your sweat rate, how much you're losing. There are a couple different methods we can use to help you figure that out in terms of your sweat rate, but your sweat composition, we can't help you with. We don't know that. You either have to go to a lab, or we have this sweet new technology that is wearable for you to measure yourself. So there's a couple cool things about this patch. You wear it, it is giving you that data at the end of your run. Now, when you get the data readout from your workout, it's going to tell you your sweat composition. So we're going to find out how salty you are. And one of my favorite things then that it does is it's going to recommend, it has a long list of products. They are not partnered with any specific product. So they recommend like anything that's on the market is on their product list in terms of electrolyte drinks. And they are going to recommend to you, based on your sweat concentration, which product most closely matches up with that. And you can see the entire list of products compared with their electrolyte composition and your electrolyte composition. So you can, not only is it going to tell you which one might be, you know, in your best range, but you can see the whole list and see how they compare in terms of lower sodium products, higher sodium products. So that's fantastic. I think that's the question everybody is after, right? Is which product is going to be best for me? And then again, it's also going to measure your sweat rate. So we can see how much you need to be drinking on the run. Now, this is really going to change depending on the weather. You are going to sweat significantly more in warmer weather, in humid weather. And then you're going to be sweating less, obviously, when it's colder and it's drier. So your sweat rate is really going to vary with the season. Yeah, it's fantastic for collecting that data and helping you to dial down. Now, there's another really cool feature, except I haven't used it yet. And I'll be honest, I haven't had any of my athletes use it yet either, because I think it could be data overload. But they have this really neat feature where it can sync with your watch, your Garmin or your Coros, and it can give you live actionable feedback. I think that's incredible that it can measure how you are sweating and tell you in the moment on your run, you need to replace 3 fluid ounces of hydration drink. You need to replace 5 fluid ounces of it'll tell you what to do based on how you're sweating. Now, again, I think that's really cool. However, when you're out for a run, especially if it's a race and you've already got your brain going wild with like how many miles you have, what the pace is, what the workout is, I think also having something pinging on your watch telling you when to drink and how hydrated you are can be probably too much and maybe too stressful. Where I think this could really have interesting benefits is in long ultra running. So I feel like not even like day long ultra running where you may be trying to pick up some speed, but like an all day 100-mile, 100+ adventure. It might be a really helpful tool for that sort of thing. Yeah. So the Nix biosensor, I think, is incredible. It's not the only sweat test on the market. If you're watching on YouTube, Michelle has one. It's tiny. Like, you won't even notice that you're wearing it. It's not heavy. It doesn't bother you. You're just out there sweating and collecting data, and getting that feedback on what you should be drinking in terms of a product, as well as how much you lost and how much you need to be drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Michelle and I have both used it. Scott, you need to. It's so helpful. Again, I can't recommend it enough. You get when you buy it, you get the little pod, which is reusable. So you can use it again and again and again and again. And then that pod clips onto the sweat patch. Those patches are individual use, single use. I think it comes with 4 patches.
It comes with 4 and you can buy more. Yeah.
Yeah, you can buy more also. This is not something I have athletes wear like every single run. I have them use it for like a few key long runs. Like if you're going out for a big long run, put it on so we can get that data. for your 3 mile Monday recovery run, don't waste those patches do have a cost. So don't waste it on that sort of a thing. You save it for a big effort where you can really get big data.
Yeah, it only works after 30 minutes too. So like it won't even register.
Oh, okay.
If you're running less than 30 minutes, it will not register. You're just wasting your patch, which they're like $25 for 4. So they are pretty pricey when you use them ongoing. But I wanted to let you know, because you do not have an iPhone, right?
No, I'm Android.
So the real time, and now this was a couple months ago, the real time with Apple, I did try to set that up on my watch. It does not yet work fully with Apple users, even with your Garmin. So just so you're aware, I think Android was working fine. They were still working on making the Apple real time data functional, but so it wasn't functional a couple months ago, and they apologized and said, yeah, it's like not quite there yet. Just as a side note, so you knew that.
Yeah, no, that's helpful to know. I think also we're not quite there yet in terms of implementing it on the run.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think you've got enough coming at
So
you
much.
when you're on the run, but it's
it
helpful
is
for
useful.
after.
And they do have, like when you were talking about weather, they have a NIX score, which like a 0. I don't remember what the scale is, but it's like their proprietary way of defining the weather. So like it pings your location, it gets the weather, so that it tells you like, which is cool because like if you know the NIX score for the day is 45, which is moderate, it'll tell you how much you sweat on that given day. So you don't have to keep retesting. If you pull up the NIX app before you run, you're like, oh, it's a 45 day and I'm running 5 miles. I know I'm probably going to sweat this much with this much salt. So like you can get good data and not have to constantly recheck. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Agree. It's a tool to use a few times. It's not a tool to use on every run or necessarily even every week. You can do 2 or 3 tests during the summer and get a good range of what your summer sweat is going to look like. And then, maybe do another test or 2 in the winter and get a gauge on how your body's functioning in different weather. Not an everyday tool, but a really, really neat tool to add into your mix.
I'm going to get
Yeah. And it's not for what it is, for what it's doing, it is not expensive. I want to say up front, you're looking at about $120. For our athletes who are sponsored by the feed, they do sell it on the feed. So you can use your sponsorship money toward a NIX biosensor. So yeah, it's in the price range of 120, and that comes with 4 patches, and then you can get more patches. I think Michelle said, I think it's about 25 for a pack of 4.
And like just as reference, a sweat test from what was it, Levelin, that we used to say that you could send it out to a lab, was $120. So for the price of one,
you can get 4.
You can get 4,
and you get the instant data, instant feedback.
Right, you're not waiting 3-4 weeks for your results. Yeah,
this is super cool tech. Okay, let's move on because we're getting long here. Michelle, you wanted to talk about recovery tools. I think that this is a great one. So tell us about some recovery tools that might be sort of like extra tech.
Yeah, so I want to say that none of these are necessary. I'm going to preface that because they're all bonuses. They all feel amazing, but like it's not something we're going to say you have to have. So there's 3 like tech recovery tools outside of like foam rollers and the crossballs that I use. I have a massage gun, which is one of those percussive massage devices like a Theragun or a Hyperice kind of thing. Recovery boots, which are like the space boot looking things that will compress your legs. And then I kind of threw in here the TENS units, which is the electronic little stimulation thing. And they each work differently. And they all can help your recovery. Again, you can also get recovery through traditional non-tech ways very, very well. But these are just nice to have. So the massage gun is great after your runs. Honestly, you can use it before your runs. It's not as intense as a foam roll or a lacrosse ball. So I want to get that out of the way. It's not going to dig into your muscles like foam rolling will and really work out a lot of knots. But it feels really great, especially for me on my feet. That's where I love using it after a run. You can adjust the speed settings. You can apply pressure, and at least the Theragun, that's the only massage gun I've had, will show you on the app like your pressure and whether it's too hard or too soft for the body, on the app that the body part you're working on. So you can really kind of make sure you're not getting in too deep or not deep enough. And they come with different attachments for different purpose is. So like there's like a standard, they call it the dampener, and that's just kind of your standard massage thing that will work out your muscles and loosen things up. And then they have a giant ball that's meant to be used on your glutes because it kind of digs in. It's a little more hard, so you can really get into those. And that's another area I do work after my runs. My glutes get really tight and my piriformis gets tight. And then they have a few other ones that honestly I haven't used. They have like a little tiny ball and they have a scraper thing. I've never once touched any of those, but it's really nice to have. And it's great before sleep. I would say like using it before bed feels incredible. It's good to get your back where, you can't get very easily.
That's what I was going to say, is they're really for convenience. So
Yeah.
foam rolling with a firm foam roller or a lacrosse ball is your deepest, best tool, but it's inconvenient or difficult to get, well, for one, to make the time to get down on the floor and to actually do it. I think a lot of us struggle with that, and hard to reach places that either it's hard for you to reach or the position is difficult. Like, you can just foam roll your glutes with the gun really quick for 60 seconds while you're standing up, as opposed to getting your foam roller, getting down on the ground, supporting yourself in that position. So for convenience, you're getting a nice release easily.
Yeah. And they're great for travel because like a lot of times you're not going to travel with your foam roller. I mean, lacrosse ball you can easily throw in, but this is nice because, if you're traveling on a plane, especially, like you're not going to throw your foam roller probably into your suitcase. So this is nice because you can pack it pretty easily. They even make mini ones if you want for travel. But the regular one is just fine. And of course they do have like anything else, a range, from the basic all the way up to some elite model. I can't think of a reason why anyone would need the elite model. I have a basic one. It does great. I've had it for 2 years and it's been wonderful.
I have an off-brand off Amazon. It's probably about $90, so it wasn't cheap, but it was not like name brand expense. And I've had it for 4 or 5 years. It still works fantastic.
Yeah, and right. Like mine's been 4 years and it's been perfect. It's been great. Yeah.
So let's talk about recovery boots. I think probably the biggest question people have is, what do they do?
So they are compression boots. They have, what you do is you stick your legs in these things. It looks like astronaut boots. You kind of lay on the couch and stick your legs in them, zip them up. And what they do is they fill with air and they pump blood flow back out of your legs. So if you really don't need this unless you're doing really long runs, but after a long run, your blood will pool down in your legs, just like compression socks do. But this kind of physically pushes the blood back up out of your legs to help recovery. That's it. They only do one thing, and you can adjust the pressure. So that's the nice thing, is you can go easy, if you're getting them, start easy for sure. And then you can adjust the pressure upwards to where you're comfortable. You do need to be careful not to do it too hard because you can injure yourself. But they're just nice to have. So, like, you can lay on the couch and have this thing just it squeezes your legs nice and feels like a little massage, and then releases. And it does this over and over for a given amount of time.
Well, so I think that's an important point that people misunderstand, is that it's not a massage, it's compression, and that's different. So in a massage, you are getting targeted, deep pressure into your muscles. They're not massage boots, they are compression. They're doing exactly what Michelle said, where they are pushing your blood flow back up through your body. And they do cycle that way from your feet upward toward your toes. So people tell me all the time, I want to get the massage boots, or what would be better about having the boots versus going to get a massage. And I just want to make sure that people know those are two completely different things. So they're not comparative, I guess.
Right. Yeah. They do totally different things. And the recovery, like, you're not going to get the same benefit as this as a massage gun or a foam roll.
Right.
Yeah.
So now here's another one of the, we should just preface up front, they're expensive. Even if you get an off-brand, they are expensive. They're a nice luxury to have. They're fantastic. If you have a PT that you go to see, I'll throw another side note in there for our Run Squad athletes. We partner with Elite Performance Institute, and they give us use of their recovery boots at their facility. You can book an appointment and just go in and do it at no cost. That's awesome. So if you have a good PT that you can go in and use that resource. If you don't want to spend the money on something like this, is there a way to get that same kind of effect without having the big expensive recovery boots?
For free, you can stick your legs up a wall. Like, lay on your back put your legs up the wall, put a couple pillows under your butt so you're elevated, and just hang there for a few minutes. Like, it's free and easy. It's just, you don't get the little spa treatment of laying and snapping note so much while you do it as you get with the boots. Like, I just like the boots because I can veg out on the couch and take a nap while it does the work. You can do it totally for free.
And it does feel nice.
It feels amazing. It feels really, really great after a long run. It is 100% unnecessary. And it's a complete luxury. No need to spend the money. I was very fortunate.
Unless you want to.
Unless you want to. I got mine on sale, full disclosure. I probably wouldn't have gotten them full price. And I love them. Love them. But it's not needed whatsoever. Like, you don't need them. But they're fun.
All right. There was one more thing you threw in there.
Yeah, the TENS units. So those are popular.
Oh, that's right.
They're actually pretty inexpensive now. They've come down in price a lot. You can get them off Amazon. You don't need a name brand anything. My PT started me on those a couple of years ago but they're just nice. They're like, what they do is you have to read the directions and be very, very careful with them. So please make sure you read all the safety stuff. There's electrodes. It's usually 2 to 4, depending on the device you get. And you stick them according to the directions on wherever you're having pain. So if you're injured, that might be something your PT would recommend, which is how I got mine. But I still use it to this day. If I'm feeling achy in a certain area that's just not resolving, you can stick these on, and for like 20, 30 minutes, you can go about your business, and this little device, you can slowly crank up this electric stimulation to your muscles, which will contract your muscles. I guess it builds a little bit of strength, but really it kind of breaks up inflammation. So you put it on, you just let it sit for 20, 30 minutes, whatever's recommended at the intensity level that you want, and then take it off and kind of move about your day. And I find it does help pain levels. It doesn't make it go away. It definitely helps things out. It does break up some inflammation. Again, they're like a nice to have, nothing you need to have, but they're pretty inexpensive on Amazon. I mean, you can get them for about $30 now. Just make sure you read directions. Like, you can't put them on opposite sides of your body, just to make that very clear. You could shock your heart out of rhythm. So if you're using it on your torso, it always has to be on like either front or back. And I don't think you should use it. I don't know. Can you use it on your chest? I don't think you can.
I think I just wouldn't.
I just wouldn't. I don't know. I have personally never put it on my torso because I'm too scared to try. It's been on my legs. It's been on my butt. That's the closest it gets to my torso. I've never even tried it on my upper body. So honestly, I don't know. I use it on my legs because I'm too scared to get near my heart with it.
It's a pretty superficial stimulus. I mean, for sure, like pitchers use them on their arm and their shoulder, their rotator cuffs. But just, you're a runner. Just don't worry about it. Don't put it on your heart, just for good practice.
It just stays on my legs. I never have it above my waist. So I just wanted to throw it out there. Be very careful with them. They are awesome. I like it. But again, it's just a nice to have, nothing needed.
Okay, let's move on to our last category. We are talking about, for Scott, you wanted to talk about wearable storage as tech that you really like to have, that you would highly recommend. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so wearable storage, what I will say is almost everything nowadays has storage in it, right? So if let's go back, years and years ago, as an athlete, you had pockets, right? So if you wanted to take your keys with you and wallet, whatever, ID, stick it in your pocket, right? It kind of bounces. It's not really convenient. So then things kind of progressed, and there was like waistbands and backpacks and all of that. So, but as times have changed and gotten more advanced, there's really specifically for endurance athletes and runners specific gear that's for wearables. And the one that I like the most is a belt. I have a Naked brand belt that I wear. But lots of different brands have these. They're very form-fitting, so there's less bounce. So I don't want to say the fabric is like neoprene, but it's a really kind of form-fitting, and so you can put anything in it, and it's not going to flop and bounce around. That, to me, is the benefit of wearable storage, right? As opposed to if you've got a pair of shorts with a pocket in it, that's going to bounce around. So it's more comfort than anything with some of this wearable storage. Is there storage in like the hydration packs? 100%. Absolutely. There's almost too many pockets in some of those things. They're like everywhere. And when I go on really super long runs, it's like, where did I put my gels and my keys? And they're sliding everywhere. And so there's lots of different variations you can do with this. Also, if you're somebody that says, hey, you know what? I don't really want to have like a belt or a backpack, now brands of clothing are actually coming out with, let's say, shorts, for example, with these things built in. So there's shorts that actually have the design of a really form fitting belt into the waistband, so that you can put your keys, your phone, your gels inside of there, and so you don't have to go out and buy a separate belt. So you can kind of get the two in one. Um, Probably the thing that I like wearing the belt as my wearable storage the most for is so that I'm hands free. For years I had to run with a handheld bottle for hydration, and I couldn't stand it. I just didn't like something in my hand. So now I've got the flasks for my fluids, or and it's collapsible, and so I just stuff them in the pocket of this waistband. Doesn't bounce, and I don't even know it's there really. So for me, that's the other advantage is hands free. Um, you can stuff a lot of stuff in there, and again, it doesn't bounce. You really don't know it's there. Um, you can stick gels in there, your phone, your keys, even to the point where some of these now you can, if you've got like a really lightweight, windbreaker, you can kind of stuff it, kind of in there too. So there's a lot of different options you can do, but I think kind of to sum it all up, I would say one, hands free and kind of convenience is what I would go for. But two is just that non bounce. I remember years and years ago, I used to wear like I forget what it was called. It was just like a belt with like the front pocket, and you could put like, and it would just
The
bounce.
spy belt.
It would just bounce and bounce, and I'm like, I don't like that. So it's convenience, it's comfort. If I'm on a really long run or hike where I'm going to be out there for a very long time, I'll wear the pack. So I've got a vest pack that has hydration and pockets, and the belt as well. That way I'm kind of carrying more than less, especially kind of now when it's really cold outside, or when it's cold in the morning and then it warms up. I can kind of take something out, take a jacket or a windbreaker off, and stuff it in the back of my vest pack. So that's another advantage too, is you can have pockets to kind of strip down and take some layers off when the weather changes.
So I'll add in there too for women, sports bras with a large cell phone pocket are a lot more commonplace now too. That are again for hands-free storage at your back. You can fit a phone in there. You can fit gels in there. They even have a few sports bras that have gel pockets built in, like to the lining that goes around your chest. If you can't reach to your back to get a gel out in the middle of a race. I don't particularly recommend those. I got one time and the gel slid around like under my armpit and I was sweating and then I had to pull this gel out from my it was not right. I recommend putting them in your back. But the sports bra storage is fantastic for women who have that option, or men. I don't know if that's what you want to go with. Um, okay, Michelle, take us. So Scott's talking about going out for long adventures. You wanted to talk about safety equipment. Some of the top safety things that you would recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, so there's a few. And I guess we're talking about women. You're going out by yourself. I carry weapons when I'm running before, after dark, early mornings, late nights. There's some cool wearables now that you can get. There's something called a Go Guarded, which is a plastic ring that slips onto your finger, and it's like pointed. It's like a jagged little plastic thing that like really could do some damage with somebody. So like it's made so that if you fall, it stays flat against your hand. But if you make a fist, this thing comes out. So you're not going to fall on it and hurt yourself, but you could attack someone if they come out at you. Another thing I have is, it's called a Tiger Lady, and it's like a thing you hold on to, and when you squeeze it, the claws come out, and you can. So these are just kind of safety things for, men or women, really. If you're running alone at night and you're not feeling secure, they're easy to hold. They're made for on the run. They're just kind of fit the contours of your hand or fit on your finger. So you're not carrying a lot of extra gear, but they're enough to do some damage to someone if, God forbid, something happens. And I also kind of carry mace. I usually stick it in one of my pockets of my hydration pack, and I keep that day or night with me. Stick it in your sports bra wherever you can. They're small. Make sure the safety's on when you have it at home, so no one's playing with it and sprays themselves. But those are my three like anti-attack things that I keep on myself, as I say as a woman, but men have the same issue. Anyone could be attacked. So whoever wants it, they're great little things that are made to be used on the run. Aside from that, like there's beacons. which is usually part of an app. Like Strava has a built-in beacon system. Garmin has a beacon system. So I make sure that I set those up before I run. So it alerts my husband when I'm out running. So whether he's at work or not, he knows, okay, she's heading out for her run. I'll know that she's doing 5 miles. If she doesn't call me in 50, 60 minutes, something's up. Maybe she fell or whatever. So he can see where I am, kind of like Find My on my iPhone. I'm sure there's other things too, but he can track me with Beacon where I am. So for safety's sake, he knows if the fall detection goes off and calls him, he can see my location instantly and know that I was out running when that happened. And then going along with dark runs, which are very frequent right now in the winter, is lights. I have a Knox Gear vest, which I think is pretty popular. It's like an LED vest. It's very light. You turn it on and it blinks like Christmas lights. It changes colors. It does different flashes. So it really does catch attention. And when I've worn it at night, people have stopped and said, hey, nice lights, like from their car. So you know you're being seen. They make them for your dog. You can get them for your dog as well. So if you run with them. But there's reflective gear. I've got some Brooks gear. Brooks makes an awesome set of reflective gear. And I've got like a shirt of theirs and the gloves. But they have pants, hats, a million different things. And they really do reflect light at night. So that in conjunction with your lights, it really gets you to be seen. As well as like a headlamp. You can use headlamps as a trail runner. I know that's a big thing, but I use a clip for a visor clip, which is, I think I got it on Amazon for $5. It just clips on the bill of my running hat and I can see ahead of me. There's handheld lights, there's waist lights, but that's a big one right now in winter because it's dark at 4. So even if you're running at 6 o'clock after work or you're running at 6 in the morning, it's dark outside. So you need to make sure you're seen by vehicles, other people coming ahead. And the only other thing I have on here is alarms. So that's another safety kind of attack mode thing is one that comes to mind is one called Birdie. And you can buy it. It has a beacon as well if you want, or you can just buy the alarm. And all you do is pull it. It's like on a hook. And I keep it clipped to my sports bra. And when you yank on it, it has this huge alarm sound that goes off. So anyone around would probably be scared and run off. Those are my 3. Those are my top safety things. Like just to make sure someone knows where I am, someone can see me in the dark, and if God forbid someone attacks me, I have some defense on my person to help me get out of that situation.
Those are great recommendations. I like, especially talking about being seen, the Knox vest that has on the front and the back. I can't tell you, again, because it's dark so early at like regular hours that people are out, how many cyclists I have come up behind that you can't see them at all because they don't have any lights on their back. They probably have something on the front to see where they're going, but gosh, it scares me. So
yeah.
If you are an early morning or an after work runner, be seen and be safe. I don't mean to diminish the safety side of it too. Yeah, those are great. And great stocking stuffers. Okay. The last item that I had on our list, and this is probably my top choice, but it's a big one, is the treadmill as a tool for training, a tool for elevating your training. And I feel like this is an important one I wanted to touch on because the treadmill gets a bad rap. And I think it gets a bad rap from people who don't understand how to use it. I think, obviously we know treadmills are helpful when the weather is bad outside, right? When it's raining or it's cold or it's hot or whatever. And I think that's why it gets a bad rap is people tend to think you're weaning out for the treadmill because you don't want to run in the weather. The treadmill is a fantastic training tool though. So in the summer, I will have athletes who are training for a speed goal. When it's July and it's hot and it's humid and you have a workout that you need to get done and we're targeting a very specific pace that we want to be practicing at for your goal race, you can't get to that pace outside. You just can't because the weather is we have to do a heat score adjustment because the weather is so brutal. Now, you are getting the work on your aerobic system, on your cardiovascular system by going out and running at the same effort range outside. So that's great. But what you're not getting is the leg turnover of the actual pace that we want you to be running and training for. So in the summer, I will often have my half marathoners, people who are going for a specific targeted speed goal, do their tempo runs and their speed sessions inside on the treadmill so they can get the actual power and leg turnover of the pace that they're trying to be working toward. I think it's a fantastic tool for that, and people don't realize that necessarily. In the winter, I also think you have sort of a similar situation. Again, when it comes to weather, ice, snow, that kind of thing, you cannot go out and run a structured workout, a speed session in the snow. You can absolutely go out and run easy in the snow. It's a lot of fun. You should do it. But you absolutely should not be running speed sessions, tempo workouts in the snow. Not only is it unsafe for like things like slipping, but you're also putting a lot of extra work, especially onto your hamstrings, as you're slipping just a little bit with each step as you push, even on an easy run. But obviously, that's extrapolated and becomes a bigger issue at higher intensity. So in the winter, when the weather does get to you, you can still get your speed sessions done. If we're under snow for a week, you can get your workouts in. Whereas someone who doesn't have a treadmill is running outside only, they can go run easy outside. But they can't get their workout in. They're missing all of their quality work for that week. A treadmill is a fantastic tool for that purpose. And then again, for my trail and ultra athletes who maybe people don't think that trail running is beneficial on a treadmill, this is huge. If you are training for an event that has a lot of elevation gain and descent, depending on where you live, you can train specifically for any event in the world on a treadmill, regardless of where you live. If you live in the Midwest and you have not a single hill in sight, you can train for Mount Everest on the treadmill. With that continuous incline. Same for the Boston Marathon is another famous one that has it has rolling hills, but it has quite a bit of downhill, and you need to train your quads for that. A treadmill can you can do, some treadmills have a decline, and you can train that long continuous decline mileage. So I really think for any event that you're training for that you don't have similar terrain around you, the treadmill is a fantastic tool. I'm training right now for a run that is a very long, very steep, sustained, continuous climb and descent. And I live in Maryland. Like the most that I can find to train on is maybe a mile or so of continuous elevation gain before I have to come down, repeat, and do it again. And I can't get the training stimulus that I need for a continuous long miles upon miles upon miles ascent. So it's a fantastic training tool. You do not have to buy one and have it in your home. You can get a gym membership. That is the most cost-effective way to have access to a really nice treadmill. Most gyms have nice industrial commercial treadmills. If you do want to have one in your home, you can get a good quality home treadmill in the range of $500 to $600. What you want to be looking for is a 61-inch belt in terms of length at minimum. Anything shorter than that is going to be too short for running stride. So 61 inches in length at a minimum. Ideally, you want an incline that goes up to about 12%. You can get more with fancier treadmills that go up steeper, but 12% is going to be adequate for most things that you would want to be training for. And on the speed, you want to make sure that the speed goes up to, now I'm going to say this is specific to the person, but that it goes up to a range that you want to be working within. So take a look at the miles per hour. Your standard treadmill is going to go to at least 10 miles an hour, 10 miles per hour. That's a 6-minute pace. Other treadmills will go up to 12 miles an hour. So just even up to 15, I think you can get a home treadmill that'll go up that fast. So just make sure that the speed that the treadmill will go to suits the speeds that you want to be training and working at. But I think it is just a huge, fantastic training tool that people overlook as I don't know, something that people are weaning out to the treadmill is the term that I feel like I keep hearing. And it's just, you can really elevate your training by having a tool like that. Okay. That brings us to the end of our list. I wanted to go back. We're getting a little bit long here. So let's just real quick, if you had to pick one thing, because again, like we said in the beginning of the podcast, we are not recommending you buy all of these things. None of us has all of these things. It's too much. But if each of you could pick one thing that you think has helped you elevate your training the most, what would you pick? Just one. Michelle, I'll start with you. Oh, sorry,
Watch.
Scott.
I'd say a GPS watch. That would be my number one pick.
Scott?
I'm going to go different. I'm going to say a waist belt. And the reason that it's the waist belt is because it's given me the freedom of hands free and allows me to carry so much more than I was before. Now, obviously, the watch, yeah, it's going to give me a lot of data, but yeah, I'm going out there and saying the waist belt for me.
I'm going to say the treadmill for all the reasons that I just said. I don't need to rehash them, but I think I would probably say the watch also, but Michelle already picked it. So I'll go different, the treadmill.
You guys picked the high end items. I picked the third.
Well,
doesn't
but
have
again,
to be
not necessarily.
You can get a
Planet
$100
Fitness.
GPS watch.
Yep. Yeah.
Planet Fitness, $10 a month. They have great treadmills.
I mean, what's a Forerunner
So I think
110? What Forerunner 110 is like $80, $90? I mean, that's all you need.
Yeah. I think, yeah, like it's mentally for me, like it sounds crazy, but the peace of mind to be hands free and to carry the amount of crap that I carry on some of these runs, like, yeah. I think it's more that for me. It's more of the mental peace of mind that has helped elevate me as opposed to the technology of, let's say, like a treadmill or a watch. Although, yeah, if I had to guess, they'd say, yeah, the watch, but Michelle took that, so.
Yeah, but you're going to be lost in the woods with all your gears. What's going to happen because you have no idea how far you've gone or where you are.
All right.
Out there with all your gels.
Okay. I think that we could probably extrapolate on this with a lot more things. Our cheap and inexpensive sport can very quickly, when you are passionate and invested in it, can very quickly add up. So these were at the top of our list as we head into holiday season and we head into a new training block for a few things that you might consider to up your game. That's my phone. I'm so sorry. Okay. All right. We are going to end this episode. Thank you guys so much for joining me. You can find us at moremilestogo.com. That is our website where you can learn more about what we do as coaches, as a team, as well as about each of us individually. You can also find us on social media at More Miles Run Coaching on Instagram and Facebook if you're interested in seeing what our athletes are up to. We've been posting race results all season, and we're about to wrap up our season here. And then you can find the podcast at the More Miles Podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen, as well as on YouTube. YouTube, again, is at More Miles Run Coaching. All right. Thanks for joining me, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.